Welcome to another episode and podcast with EDU is Life. I'm your host, Jared Risher, and today we're going live. And the occasion is very special. If you've been following Ice Cube on Twitter, you'll understand that a lot of things have been brewing. He's been up to some massive movements. Okay, so today he released his contract with Black America. That is directed to the United States. And I want to go live and we're going to read this together and then we're going to give some commentary on it. First and foremost, I want to thank all the subscribers. This is a new channel and we're starting out small, but we're growing at a pace that I appreciate. One subscriber, two subscribers is amazing. You take your time out to kick it with me, and I appreciate it. People have been listening to our podcast on online and on Anchor, on Spotify, Apple. Everywhere that you can stream, EDU is Life is there. We have the videos coming. We sit down with regular people and discuss community initiatives and solutions and issues, but from a perspective that we're familiar with. We don't always have to listen to celebrities, and in this case, we're going to look at what Ice Cube wants to talk about, but he isn't the only person that has an opinion. So let's check it out and hold on, I'm getting a phone call. Let's check it out and see how we can see what we think about this. All right. So, a contract with Black America addressing racial inequality. After 400 years of unequal treatment, Black Americans have had enough with gradual reform in a nation that prides itself as the world's greatest democracy. While well-intentioned solutions may have been tried, it is simply too much to ask an oppressed people to stay patient. To finally create the more perfect union all Americans deserve, it is time for a complete paradigm shift in how we run our institutions and operate our country. While this contract with Black America may seem radical to some, the result will be a harmonious society that benefits everyone rather than the more radical alternative, which is watching the great American experiment come apart at the seams. The first point and the first thing we want to address in the contract with Black America is Black opportunity and representation. Bullet point one, a system of reparations. A commission required to determine how much a commission required to determine how much reparations are to be distributed. Funds must be distributed to Black Americans within a year after the commission is established. Bullet point number two, affirmative action for all secondary schools, colleges, and universities, public and private. Black enrollment must meet or exceed the percentage of Black population nationwide, which is 13.4%. In addition, if the Black population in the county the school is located is greater than 13.4%, the enrollment must be increased to that higher percentage. However, 25% Black enrollment will satisfy the county. 25% Black enrollment will satisfy the county requirement if the school can prove they are a national school with less than 30% enrollment from the state the school is located. The same guidelines that apply to students will also apply to faculty. Bullet point number three, Mandatory civil rights and anti-racism classes in all elementary schools. Black scholars will write the textbooks and curriculum adopted for these classes. Black representation on all government civil rights investigative bodies. Reform gerrymandering. Districts cannot be designed to minimize the impact of the black vote. More polling sites in minority and black neighborhoods so that the number of polling stations provides equal access to black voters as they do in white and other communities. Lack of access violates the 1965 Voters' Right Act, and the act should be amended to give it more teeth since it is currently not working. Juneteenth. I'm sorry. This is bullet point one, two, three, four, two, three, four, five. Seven. Bullet point seven. Juneteenth to become a federal holiday. And bullet point eight. Equal health care facilities in all neighborhoods, regardless of demographics. Paragraph two and second point. Now, this document was it's not a long document. It's as Ice Cube mentioned. Read it, give some feedback, see what you think, and it's a good start. So let me finish. Massive bank lending and finance reform. While capitalism is a good system, it requires capital to participate. Redlining was a prevalent bank system years ago of minimizing loans to hazardous neighborhoods, which were usually defined as those predominantly black or Jewish. While redlining was made illegal in 1968 with passage of the Fair Housing Act, and then again with the 1977 Community Reinvestment Act, CRA, statistics show the perpetuation of de facto redlining in many of the same communities, most notably black communities, still exist. Studies consistently show blacks are denied access to lending in roughly the same percentages as before the Act's passage. This is deep. This is deep. All right. Give me a second while I get this together here. The result is white families have nearly 10 times the net worth of black families today. As an example, even when black families get home mortgages, nearly 20% pay on average 1.5 percent points above the average offered to whites. And although the black population is roughly 13.4% of the nation, approximately only 3% of loans and credit are given to black people, whether for credit cards, home mortgages, or black owned businesses. Bullet point number nine. Bank lending on a yearly basis by percentage of dollar amount must match the black population and communities which the bank serves. However, the minimum threshold must yearly meet the percentage equal to the national black population, currently approximately 13.4%. As the black population increases, the minimum threshold will increase. Yearly audits and banks not meeting the minimum standards face loss of bank charters. To be crystal clear, every bank in the United States each year must lend in each category of loan, credit, mortgage, etc. a minimum of 13.4% to the black owned businesses or individuals across the category or instrument of financing involved. Bullet point 10. Rates on bank loans federally and from banks to be at the same average rates as whites. changed the decades-old scoring model to mandate consideration of consumer data on rent, utility, and cell phone bill payments. All right. Now we go to another section. Additional financial reform. A cookie jar company is any company that was knowingly involved in human trafficking, human bondage, slave trading, or slave labor at any point in its existence. Companies found to have directly benefited from the private prison system and those who perpetuated overtly racist policies will also be considered cookie jar companies. Individual negotiations will be conducted by a commission formed for the singular purpose of assessing penalties and remedies from these companies caught with their hands in the cookie jar. Who put the hand in the cookie jar? Who put the hand in the cookie jar? VC, which is venture capitalism or venture capitalists, and private equity funds that take money from police unions or other public entities must invest 13.4% of their total funds in black-owned businesses. According to Axios, only 1% of venture capital-backed founders were black between 2013 and 2018. Corporations, publicly regulated and are part of the certification process, all past and current tax returns must be made public. Audit of opportunity zones to determine who is benefiting from disbursement of such funds and tax breaks to public disclosure of the owners of projects granted such access. Judicial and public policy reform. Recognize racism as a public health crisis that mandates a federal response. Ban all privately run prisons. Fines established to be paid by companies who profited off the private prison system. Prisoner labor not allowed without consent. Prisoners to be compensated at the minimum wage and hazardous pay provided for applicable duties. Declare the KKK a terrorist organization. And again, we're just reading. We'll deliver our feedback after we complete the document. Part of EDU's life is about a renaissance of education, a renaissance of, having a desire to learn, dusting off the cobwebs of the brain. We've graduated high school, we've been out of school and classes for a long time, and it's time that we pick the books back up and, find a reason and a love to build upon what we already know, figure out if it needs to be updated or changed completely and dredged out of our mental capacity and start over if we have to. Because information that was given to us in the schools, we look back today and say, it wasn't all right. It wasn't all true. So as we read this and we see in this proposal some of the demands that are being stated, it's important that we have the tolerance to sit down and read. We have the tolerance to sit down and listen. We have the desire to want to be involved, to engage, to give our part. This may have started with Ice Cube and his team, whoever helped him draft this up, or if he drafted it himself. But it can't end with him, and it can't be all his responsibility. We have to look at this document, which you can find on yumpu.com, or go to his Twitter, Ice Cube's Twitter, and you can download the document. But we have to get feedback. We have to push the pendulum and say, listen, I've read your document. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. And I want to see you or whoever is with you to build this this proposal, I want to see you make the changes. The same way we want to hold our politicians accountable is the same way we need to hold our so-called community leaders accountable. You know, it's great that this document was drafted, but who's listening to us when we give our feedback? That's the step that has to be addressed. You know, we can't just sit back and say, yeah, you know, one of our celebrities who owns this and he owns that, he's well known, he has our back. Well, we want to make sure he has our back. You know, a lot of the issues that happen in our community is lip service. We have these people who are prominent and they do great things by, you know, spending their money, but how far does it go? Do we follow up? So from this point, the paradigm has shifted. This document has shifted the paradigm in our community because someone of Ice Cube's stature or status stamped it. He put his name on it. He's standing out in the forefront. He's not hiding in the dark. You know, a few years back, Umar Johnson had started his idea of the Black Boys School, and he had this silent investor that was going to put up the money for the schools, who happened to be an NBA player. And then Umar Johnson got into some trouble, you know, through his own iniquities, and that silent partner backed out. You know, that was a paradigm shift in and of itself, because before that happened, everybody was invigorated by this character, Umar Johnson, who now is Umar Ifatunde, you know, and he's castigated and people don't really follow him the same way. And that's for you. You know, my personal opinion on that is my personal opinion, but he's not in the same light. So we got to salute Ice Cube for putting his face out there. As I come to you from Saudi Arabia, a gesture or a cultural practice that they do is when they put their face out, they grab their nose. How we say, cut off the nose in spite of the face. Well, that's what they do. When they know they're putting their neck out, they grab their nose as if they're in jeopardy of cutting their nose off, which would mutilate their face. So salute the brother Ice Cube. But now is the next step. Now the next step that needs to take place is feedback from the community. You know, his Twitter should have 13.4 million comments, or of the 13.4% of the community should comment to his Twitter feed. All of those people in the community who have a Twitter, who are guardians, who are parents, who are, you know, of a responsible age to deal in these topics, they should respond to him. He should have an entire brass of people from the community to respond in one way or the other. The discussion should not be resting on his team and his shoulders. Okay, so I will continue. Lynching to become a federal hate crime with the recommended federal sentence of life. Free nonviolent offenders incarcerated for 10 years or longer who have less than 5 verifiable write-ups. Write-ups can be challenged and given due process. Free all prisoners for marijuana possession. Eliminate laws establishing mandatory minimums. Eliminate 3 strikes laws. First offense for illegal drug use or possession to require government payment for entry into an approved drug rehabilitation program rather than imprisonment. Department of Justice, or the DOJ, Civil Rights Division, reformed through stricter guidelines. So the DOJ oversight of police departments and other government institutions becomes more than a rubber stamp. The DOJ can be sued for non-compliance so that standards do not vary depending on administration. Currently, the black population is overrepresented in the military, as 17% of soldiers are black. The percentage of black enlisted soldiers is even higher. To compensate for this disproportionate contribution to our national defense, 5% of the Defense Department budget will be allocated towards beautification, education, and youth programs in predominantly black neighborhoods. Such programs will build goodwill towards the country, resulting in greater patriotism, more successful recruitment efforts, and a generally more enthusiastic military population. EPA to inspect water supplies in all communities nationwide for lead and other forms of contaminants. Fixing polluted water systems to deliver clean water will take priority in any future infrastructure spending bill. I'm going to go to the next part. Constitutional amendment codifying expansion of the 13th Amendment by the courts. Amendment will abolish slavery in any form, including as a punishment for crime as allowed by the 13th Amendment for prison inmates. Further, it will declare unconstitutional any government-run system, including justice, policing, education, health, and welfare, etc., that does not provide services on an equal basis to all citizens and communities. Let me read that back again. Amendment will abolish this. Okay, I see. This was worded incorrectly. So this amendment will abolish slavery in any form, including as a punishment for crime as allowed by the 13th Amendment for prison inmates. Further, it will declare unconstitutional any government-run system, including justice, policing, education, health, and welfare. So that does not provide services on an equal basis to all citizens and communities. If provided public services fail to meet minimum standards, they will be considered on their face unconstitutional unless proven special circumstances. Reverses burden of proof. Okay. Ice Cube, whoever wrote this for you, brother, get in contact with me. I'll be your editor-in-chief from now on, because they didn't do a good job right here. No offense to whoever wrote it. I'm not calling you out or anything, but this is hard to read. I know it's like a legal document, but this wasn't written well. This particular segment wasn't written well. It's kind of hard to read. All right, so reverses burden of proof to those in non-compliance instead of civil rights lawyers having to prove systems are racist. While courts have expanded the interpretation of the 13th Amendment to provide some of these rights, this amendment will eliminate any uncertainty. All right. So, to be honest, reading this, you have to put yourself in the mind of like a legal person. You can't read it like a paragraph or a storybook. That's why the structure is a little different. Next portion. Entertainment industry reform and reparations. Mandatory funding of black studios by the largest Hollywood studios, record companies, and television studios and networks to compensate for years of lack of support, stereotyping, and damage to black culture. Each will be required to fund an amount yearly. Black studios will own and produce content by black creators and will be run primarily by black leadership. Content can be licensed to major studios. For a race to thrive, it must be able to create art that reflects its own views of the world. Racism still runs rampant through our society in Hollywood. Is proven the instruction manual is providing. Racism is still running rampant through our society, and Hollywood is still providing. Racism still runs rampant through our society, and Hollywood is providing the instruction manual. Licensing of public airwaves to broadcast networks such as NBC, Fox, CBS, and ABC must have black produced content equal to 20% of of the total content on the network as measured by time. Time slots must be of similar quality to other content. The same applies with radio stations and other media given access to publicly licensed airwaves by the FCC. Minimum 13.4% black cast and crew on all major television and film productions. Monuments and institutions is our next section. Eliminate all Confederate and overtly racist statues. Rather than destroy them, they are to be kept by the National Archives, Smithsonian Institute, and other anal- analogous state facilities. Analogous state facilities. They are to be used only in displays and exhibits designed to investigate our racist past. This is not sanitizing our past as history exists in books and online. There's no need to display monuments of these types, just as we allowed the Saddam Hussein statue to be removed, as well as the Berlin Wall, where doors easily could have been inserted. All uses and displays of Confederate flags on government grounds or on property with public access is illegal. Rename all streets, schools, public structures, towns, scholarships, etc., named after Confederate soldiers or leaders. Rename with names of black heroes. Memorial built in Washington, D.C. to victims of police excessive force resulting in death or permanent disability. Analogous to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in that all names and ages are included. Okay. Again, I want to say salute to Brother Q for having the desire and having the guts to put something like this together. Salute his team. I salute everybody that's involved in this project. This is monumental, okay? And if you have any reservations, like I said, you can contact the brother Q. Also, let's have a discussion here. I want to know if anyone is listening, of those who are listening, what you think. How do you feel about this proposal, this demand? Some parts of this are proposals, some parts of this are demands. So I want to give my take on this particular document, and we're gonna go portion by portion. So let me give a background introduction to people who may not know me. Um, as I mentioned in the introduction, this is EDU is Life. Also, we have EDU is Life Book Club. I'm your host, Jared Richard. I'm originally from New Jersey, Union, New Jersey, and I dealt with racism myself, and I was a person growing up who always spoke out against racism, prejudice, and bigotry. Um, I believe I'm a person who loved being black, so much so that I would tell people I'm as black as the night. I'm as black as this bag, or you turn off the lights, you can't see my face. I love being black. I was pro-black to a degree, but I was also friendly with non-black people. Where I grew up, we had a lot of diversity, pretty much majority white, and then just about everything else. And that shaped who we are today, of those of us that come from Union, New Jersey. Union consisting of Union, Vauxhall, and Stuyvesant Village. Where I grew up, it was a little piece of town called Curryville or Brookside Heights. All black people, middle class maybe. We had our ups and downs, but for the most part, it was all black. We had homes, we had parks, we had grass, we had woods, we had fun. We had community events. We cultivated each other. So to sit here in 2020 and see that we still deal with these issues that, many of us grew up in is a shame. So Ice Cube deserves the credit and he deserves an applause, and a thank you for sticking his neck out and doing something like this. However, we need to stay focused. Everything inside this document doesn't address the black community and how we identify. And the better question may be, what is the future of America? What is the future of the black community? And what is the future of the identity of an American? Because in this first paragraph, a contract with Black America addressing racial inequality, line 5, to finally create a more perfect union. To say that eliminates any idea of a future plight of freedom from the union, freedom from the government. This pretty much entails that we are going all in with the rest of America or the white society. If you were from the South, you may have family members who fought in the rebel army, who may have been Confederates. Whether you argue and say it was 5 and they were slaves, or you say they were free persons of color and they were in the thousands, the fact remains that the rebel army consisted of people of color who fought against the Union. To buy into a more perfect union means you are willing to put those things aside and start fresh. And with that, I believe it should have been mentioned, or it should have been prefaced in this document. Because it's all good if that's what you really mean. And if we're going to move forward as one, as patriots, then it needs to be prefaced that we are now going to take on the title of something new, which would be patriots, which would be under a union, because the Union fought the Confederates. The Confederates and the Union trampled upon indigenous people. People of color existed in the United States before any form of slavery, be it indentured servitude of white people or colored people, to come to the shores of the Americas. So whether you identify with ADOS or FBA, with any type of affiliation, this needs to be a part of your foundational knowledge. We didn't just pop up out of nowhere and become slaves in America. A lot of things happened that forced people of color to become servants of other people. And before those people of the white group had people of color as slaves, they themselves had a period of indentured servitude. So, to begin this initial paragraph and this introduction, a more perfect union, in my opinion, means we are starting fresh. We're going to put aside all of that past and we're going to become one. The issue I have with that is, why do we use the term union, or why do we use the term patriot? Neither one of those terms strike positive vibes in the minds of all Americans, regardless of color. We're going to go to the next segment. Black opportunity and representation. So we first start with a system of reparations, a commission required to determine how such reparations are to be distributed. I like that, because before we can talk about reparations, we need to actually put down a plan and decompartmentalize everything that will go into reparations and put them into their respective categories. You know, the who, what, why of reparations. When we talk about affirmative action for all secondary schools, colleges, universities, public and private, I'm not feeling that. I got to be honest, because first and foremost, if you've been following this argument or this conversation for the past for the entire time that coronavirus has taken over the world, and it started to become the norm that the black communities were being affected the most by the coronavirus, and we started to see the disproportionate effects of these stimuluses, and why $1,200 wasn't enough for families, and we're being out of work for multiple months. It begins to go back to the fact that affirmative action that would give people admittance into colleges and universities, technical schools, secondary schools, what have you, is not the real issue. See, I expatriated to Saudi Arabia for work reasons. I was faced with a lot of racism back home in corporate America. And I decided, I'm going to go somewhere where I can be myself and make money while doing it. However, I had a foundation of education prior to even finding a job. And to talk about education, we need to look at the foundation. We're talking about affirmative action for secondary schools. Well, what quality of student are we putting in these schools? That has been the argument that I've heard for the past 4 months. You don't want to just be admitted to a school based on your race and color, and come to find out you're not built for that particular life. Education and the ability to have the wherewithal to sit in a class in a lecture for 30 to an hour, 30 minutes to an hour, and listen to a lecturer, as they divide their student talking time and teacher talking time, that's important. I think here we need to address the future of education. We have to figure out what is the best method of acquiring knowledge for black people in the current state. If we're going to wipe away the past of people's, criminal records, what have you, we need to also examine the past of how we developed our skills, how we educated ourselves, and how we worked and performed in our careers. The future of education, the future of skills, the future of work, these are all topics that need to be put into this document. We have a culture of entertainment where a person like Ice Cube started off on the grassroots circuit, going from club to club, really working hard to get to where he is today. He diversified his portfolio, some might say, in music, in cinema, investing, where his model to become the name Ice Cube today would not work today. There was no Instagram, there was no Facebook, there was no MySpace, there was none of this back then. So we need to bring education up to speed with how culture is driven. People are getting knowledge, they're getting information at the snap of a finger. We're downloading information as fast as our internet connection allows us. So now we need to figure out how can we incorporate acquiring knowledge with the way we acquire material things or our assets. Right now I'm working on a project where here in Saudi Arabia, we're developing an online marketplace where we guarantee that organizations can download their open source technology for their organizations under 90 seconds and be able to implement it without the need of a high level expert to explain it to them. So that download will be unpacked and obviously it'll come to someone with a prior foundation of knowledge in that system. Or they can ask for us, or we can send out trainers to help them, get ready. But for the most part, whoever downloads that information, they're going to accept the terms and conditions. So they're going to already know we know how to operate we know how to operate this software. 90 seconds. 90 seconds. They can download a file and be up and running in their organization. We don't have to send out Oracle. We don't have to send out these big tech firms to implement this technology in their organization. They can go right to our website, click a button, and now they have the software that can secure and run their manufacturing facilities or their operational facilities within their teams. Why hasn't education and skills and knowledge acquisition been brought up to speed? And I'm not talking about plugging a cord to your head like in the Matrix and you download that information. I'm talking about something tangible. We have ebooks, we have tablets, we have all of these devices that go with us. And, we listen to ebooks, we read on the go, while we're traveling, we do all this in between what we are setting out to do. But we just haven't figured out how to make education more accessible and apply quality and certification to it and accreditation to it as we speed up the process. What I also do out here is train. I'm a public speaker at times. Nothing major, but it's part of what I do. I have an LMS and I have a catalog of training materials for organizations and entrepreneurs. But I just came to the conclusion to put all that aside because it's pointless. Even though I'm in a developing nation where, everybody is looking for education and looking for a way to better themselves to increase their careers, people don't have the time. They just don't feel like sitting through an online course and listening to a computer or a person talk about a topic. All they want is the certification. How can we get to the end? So, right now, with all of that said, by the year 2030, if we implement this particular plan that is in bullet two, how do we expect the little babies of the world, these little the 6 9s of the world, or the academics, DJ academics of the world, to really be a part of this initiative? And I'll tell you, it's not gonna work, because here in Saudi Arabia they have an initiative called Saudiization, which is affirmative action, and they are throwing money into this initiative to uplift their own people. Less jobs are available for expats. They want their own people to carry out these roles inside their society, and they can't beg the people beg them enough to get involved. They just don't participate at a high enough clip. Let alone participate, they don't complete. They don't have the quality that is needed. So if we're just putting numbers and bodies in seats, we cannot control the quality that comes out, because we don't control the quality that goes in. Bullet point 3, mandatory civil rights and racism classes in all elementary schools. Black scholars will write the textbooks and curriculum adopted for these classes. Again, listen, enough with this forcing an agenda down somebody's throat. Right now, if there are black authors, and I know some who are curriculum developers, who have written books, who are brilliant minds, we don't need to put black in front of it. Now, I understand that it's important for this particular agenda, this particular case. But why are we forcing that a black author is the only one who we can learn from? I think we should change this to a stronger auditing process, where we have people who go through the books that are going to be used in our schools to educate our children, to make sure the information is correct, the sources are there, and that the storylines are not convoluted in bullshit, that are not biased, and that are not untrue. I could care less if it was a Mexican, an Asian, or a black person who wrote the book that I'm going to read from. If I could take benefit from that book, then that's all that matters. First, we need to cultivate a desire within our people to become writers, to share knowledge. We do something here, it's called knowledge transfer. And that could be from a grassroots perspective first and foremost. People like Ice Cube can give master classes on how to write rhymes, how to write screenplay, how to build a business. That's knowledge sharing. If he can't write the book and build the curriculum, then there's a black person that, if that's who he wants, if that's who he prefers to do business with, find a black person that's an expert in curriculum development, in editing, in putting these together and publish it. With the name Ice Cube, I'm sure he could become a billionaire just off of books. Because you're going to cultivate an entire generation on something that is tangible, and you have the track record to prove that it works. Knowledge share. I don't want theory when it comes to teaching my kids about business or how to be successful. I want theory when it comes to my teacher, someone who graduated. She has the credentials to teach a class, but they need to maybe gain some experience. Okay, you don't have experience, but you have theory because you learn from these books. Please come teach these children. Share with them your perspective of learning, because you can't share your perspective of the contents inside of that book because you haven't done it yet. But we don't want to just force feed a system with people of color just because they are people of color. That gets us nowhere, and it only yields criticism and a lack of respect. Period. It's like this culture we have of everybody gets a freaking trophy. No, you don't get a trophy unless you win. So instead of this affirmative action, how about some form of desegregation where inside the black communities, we make zones of black engagement where the education will be cultivated by people of color and run and monitored by people of color, not mandated by the United States government. Because if those people of color feel that the education or feel that the knowledge that's being shared by the other people of color isn't adequate, then they should have the right to go outside of their group and seek a better basis of education. But we have to build the equity within ourselves first without feeling ashamed or feeling shy with saying we don't want to rock with other people. Black representation on all government civil rights investigative bodies. Okay. Reform gerrymandering. Districts cannot be designed to minimize the impact of the black vote. I mean, again, why do we let that happen anyway? That is not something that the United States government is responsible for. That falls on the black leadership, first and foremost, whether it's Puffy with Run the Vote, whether it's Al Sharpton, whether it's the Rainbow Coalition with Jesse Jackson, whether it's whether it's such and such and such and such and such and such. They're the problem. We need to get their gerrymandering out of the way because they're holding us back. Since the young black brother from Detroit, I believe he's from Detroit, won a Senate seat, or he won. I think he was 23 years old. How much have we talked about that brother? Who has hoisted him up and celebrated that brother? He's a kid working in politics. Who knows the trials and tribulations he's going through with the lobby system? You got people in there that's been in office for 50 years, 60 years, 40 years, and this kid just got his ears wet. His ears still wet. He just got his feet wet. Wet behind the ears, whatever, inexperienced, whatever. He won. He's young. Who's supporting him? Who's celebrating him? How many people even know about the brother? And I don't know his name off the top of my head. So that goes to show. No, the gerrymandering needs to be done away with in our community first. We need to get these people out of the way. The same way we want to change the seats in the Senate and with the politicians, the same way we need to say, listen, if you're a community leader and you haven't helped the progress of our people in 5 to 10 years, you got to go. We upgrade you to a campaigner. We upgrade you to a voter. You have now been given a gold star for your contributions in the numbers that we're going to take to Congress and say such and such signed the petition. Al Sharpton's name is here. No, he's not representing us. He's one of us. And his voice means nothing anymore. That's how it needs to go. Juneteenth. Before this year, how many people knew about Juneteenth? I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm not gonna go into Juneteenth. Actually, attended a Juneteenth in 2003. In the country. So I'm not gonna go into Juneteenth. It's a touchy subject. So just ask yourself: before this year, how many people knew about Juneteenth? Before social media, how many people knew about Juneteenth? Money. Let's talk about this money. Massive bank lending and finance reform. Capitalism is a good system. Capitalism is a good system. Capitalism is a good system. So we talked about a better union, a more perfect union. So we're going to stick with terminology that brought upon our downfall. And then we want to uphold capitalism. Capitalism is rooted in communism. Adam Smith is the person who created capitalism. The invisible hand. So once again, this makes no sense to me. If you're unaware of these particular terms or these systems, it may sound good to you because it sounds good. It does sound good. It sounds good, but how good is it? Capitalism is no good. It's not a good system. For the simple fact that someone is going to be extremely rich and someone is going to be extremely poor. Period. Don't read between the lines and say, oh, then socialism or communism. No, I didn't say anything about any of those isms. We're talking about capitalism. How about do away with the system in and of itself and create something different without an ism? This is crazy. Capitalism is a good system. No, it's not. It requires capital to participate. Absolutely. But the United States has the strongest GDP in the world. So the money is there for every American citizen to participate and trade if it wanted to. Period. When you talk about the 13.4% of the black community, the American government could give reparations today to the black community to start them off on a successful career in trade if they want it. There's land that could be allotted to the 13.4% of the black community to become farmers if they want it. There's airspace that is above the land, and there's space below the land that if they wanted to get into those trades or those professions of cultivation, they could do that with the funds that is produced by the United States GDP if they want it. But capitalism won't do it. Capitalism is going to cause any disbursement of funds from reparations to become a vacuum of what we've seen in Afghanistan and what we recently was re-educated about of Tulsa. People will be jealous and they will run amok. And this union that we speak of will support who? They're going to support us? There were oil barons in Tulsa. They had money. They didn't get supported. So while we think about capitalism as a viable solution, Let's say we get what we want from reparations and we build businesses. We don't throw it away on material things. And then across the road, you got people who aren't doing well because they didn't get this injection of funds. Their injection of funds came a long time ago. They have nothing to complain about, right? They don't. But now they have animosity because in this dog eat dog world, they're going to want what you have. No, this doesn't work for us. Not at all. Go to the, see. And again, no disrespect at all. This is my opinion. This is, you know, he asked for feedback and I'm giving feedback. You know, part of the plight of EDU is life is that we have to be able to stand on our feet and live with our choices, you know, speak from a position of moral principles and values that we have, not be moved by public opinion and fear. I just dropped the session 1 from the fear series that we're doing, where people are afraid to reject Black Lives Matter, ACAB, and Antifa. Listen, you can support it if you want, but that doesn't mean everybody has to support it. And you can't force people to support it. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion. And just because it's the wave right now doesn't mean everybody has to jump on it. No, I'm gonna surf my own wave. I'm gonna create my own wave. Or I'm gonna ride the wave that I've always been on, that fits with me, within my principles and my morals and my values. Oh, this is getting out of hand. I don't know why this won't open up. But I'm trying to open it up. This website doesn't want to open up the document. I can't turn it for some reason. So we're gonna end it here. It's been great. It's been good while it lasted. And you know, if you were here and you sat with me and you benefited from gaining some information about this contract with Black America, you know, like I said, like, subscribe, give your feedback. Definitely interested to hear what you think, what you feel, and let's start the discussion. You know, let's have this discussion, and let's support the brother because just because I may not agree with everything now doesn't mean changes can't be made to where I may agree with him tomorrow. That's the whole thing. We have to communicate. All business is done by communication. Relationships are built by communication. If you don't want to be a yes man, you have to be a no man. Like, no, I don't like that. But I like you. So let's build a bridge. Let's meet halfway. You want to keep that, but I want to inject this. How about this? Come with solutions. If you're going to reject something somebody believes in, come with something based on facts, figures, truth, and conviction that you believe in. Don't just say something because it's the norm, it's the cultural norm, it's the wave. But if you believe in that, if you believe in Black Lives Matter, the organization, not the Black people's lives matter, if you believe in the organization, Black Lives Matter, then rep it. Cool, do that. But if you're just parroting what other people say, if you're just parroting what you think it is, then you're not bringing something valuable to the table. You're not adding value. You're devaluing the group because the group isn't the only eyes that are watching us. There's a lot at play. So educate yourself without being connected to what you're learning about, whether it's religion, whether it's business, whether it's culture, whether it's environment stuff, whatever it is. Yourself, your knowledge of self. Educate yourself so that when you talk, you can make sense and you can add value to the conversation. I definitely want to follow up with the brother Cube and see, how I could be a part and add value to this initiative. I have experience, and I'm sure there are people who have more experience than me, but I'm telling the world that I want to be involved, and that's what you have to do. When you want something, you have to make it known that you want that. Because your ears need to hear that. Your heart needs to feel it. And then you need to move forward with that from that point on. No, I didn't agree with a lot of things within this document, but I'm willing to back it up with the solution if given the opportunity. So the same way I can say, no, we're not given opportunities within the workforce, I can document it with over the past 5 years when I applied for jobs back home from Saudi with the experience that I've accumulated and my past experience. I've been rejected over 500 times. So I can substantiate my claims. So in this particular situation, I'm rejecting this initial proposal from the brother Ice Cube. But tomorrow, given the situation, I could substantiate why on paper, document it. And I'm not the only person. And we need to have every person who can add value to that degree to come forward. And that's how the Renaissance begins. That's how we build equity within ourselves and within our own community, where we can go and say, look, this reparations proposal was nice, and y'all have to pay us. But some of this stuff on here, we don't need anymore, because when we brought this forth to the public, we got such a huge turnout, we decided to build with each other. And now we have what we need within our own community. Yes, you have to right your wrongs. You have to pay us for slavery. You have to pay us for redlining. You have to pay us for prison. You have to pay us for unfair policing. You have to pay us for this and this and this and this and this. Payment in whichever way we agree upon. We have to get our land back, because all people of color did not come to the USA as slaves. And some people were either talked out of their land, the land was taken from them, or contracts were written, and charters, as was mentioned inside of this document, charters were written to take us off the land, take us out of our lineage, paper genocide, or what you want to call it. So if we come forward now and we find that we're good with each other, then everything within that document is no longer important, and it serves its purpose. Now, as a community that has grown stronger, we can say, look, you can't kill that brother anymore and get away with it, because now you got 30 million people that's on your ass. Now, we found a reason to believe in each other because Ice Cube brought this document forward and it gave a million brothers and sisters a reason to put their education to work, not for a corporation, but for the community. Everything we learned inside those institutions, we need to be sharing that information. And I'm going to end it on that note. Go like and follow and share videos, subscribe, give your feedback, and let me know. Peace.